Good evening, everybody. My name is Carla McNeil from Learning Matters, and it is an absolute privilege to welcome you all along this evening to join us for the first of what we hope is going to be a series of live forum chit-chats with some of our game changer leaders in education and structured literacy across New Zealand. This evening, I am joined by my colleague Liz Kane from Liz Kane Literacy, and we are working together this evening to talk to these amazing people who you will be able to see on your screen to discuss their journey in leading through change as they have implemented structured literacy in their schools. So on behalf of Liz and I would like to welcome you all and thank you very much for giving up your evening to spread the good word across New Zealand. And I'm going to say to speak some home truths about, you know, what the challenges are, what your successes have been, and to share your journey really. So thanks in advance. Welcome, Liz. It's wonderful to have you working alongside me this evening too.
Thanks, Carla. It's fabulous to be here.
So we're going to kick off our forum chat this evening with having our game changer leaders introduce themselves. And so we're going to begin with Jo.
Kia ora, I'm Jo McKay. I'm the principal at Holy Family in Wanaka. So we started our journey with structured literacy about 2 years ago as a school, and we decided to take on this approach because we felt that our traditional approaches weren't working for us. We weren't getting the results that we had wanted. We felt that we had a mishmash of programs and we had reading recovery and all sorts going on, and that for us wasn't giving us the results we needed. And we met with Carla, talked to Carla, and it really felt like this was where we had to go, looking at all the evidence behind it. And for us, it was a fabulous place to begin, and we're absolutely thrilled 2 years down the road, down the journey, to have seen the results we have, and we would never look back.
Awesome. Thanks, Jo. Felicity.
Hi, I'm Felicity Fahy. I'm DP at Kaiapoi North, and we started our journey in about 2018 when we got a new RT Lit, Marina, who had worked with Liz and led us to Liz, and a bit like the others, haven't really looked back. We had the same thing. We had done years of PD, traditional PD with ministry suppliers, and our data wasn't shifting. We and our children were coming in with less and less literacy skills. So yeah, we knew that we needed to do something completely different. And when we saw what Liz and Marina were offering, it was a complete game changer and definitely would not look back or change anything now. So yeah, loving our journey.
Thanks, Felicity. We'll flick to you now, Jason, to add to what she said, perhaps.
Yeah, kia ora koutou, Jason Miles, principal of Kaiapoi North School, where Felicity is, and we're very lucky to have her, but we've also been very lucky to work with Liz since sort of the end of 2018, where we found that our junior children were just making so much quicker progress, having a lot more confidence. So from the beginning of 2019, we put all our staff into the PD with Liz, and yeah, as Felicity said, we haven't looked back.
Great stuff, thank you. Penny.
Kia ora tātou, I'm Penny O'Brien, Te Mawaki of Ngāpuna Tapawai, which is Ladbroke School in Christchurch. We've been on this journey sort of 3 years now, touched base with Carla, and we started looking at the neuroscience and just actually how the brain learnt to read. And it came about really because of a hunch. We're a high performing school, we have great data, it looks like our kids are, 97% achieving, and yet that didn't look like what it was for our actual students on the ground. And like everyone else has said, we had reading recovery, we had some phonics programs, we had these books, we had these, it just sort of, we were doing lots of things really well, but none of it was connecting. So we've been working with Carla for 3 years, 1 year with Kieran running support programs, 2 years as a whole school, and yeah, it is a game changer. We won't be ever going back, and we just find more and more things that we can keep doing, which is exciting.
Awesome, thank you. Regan.
Kia ora koutou, ko Regan tuku ingoa, ko tumuaki te kura tuatahi o Papaioia, very proud principal of Central Normal School in Palmerston North. I've been working with Liz for about the last 5 years, firstly at Fairfield School, where back then I had an epiphany when I was watching a child reading and they said, this is, and you did the classic, look at the picture, and they said cat and turned the page, and I went, jeepers, that child has no association with the word that's on the page to the picture they've been shown. I thought there must be a better way for a child to actually learn to read than guess the picture. The second moment came when, you know, you do the
effort going in, using every strategy that had been available to us until this point. Ultimately, we also pride ourselves on being, you know, an evidence-based school too, and looking at the neuroscience and how the brain learns the acquisition of language. So we knew that there had to be a shift and a change with our pedagogy and with our approach. So hence why we started on our journey with Carla and Learning Matters.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. And I know for you, I'm going to say in a personal, professional sense, this has been an incredible journey, hasn't it? Because you're so heavily grounded in that science, and it's really been really exciting to observe that in you. So Liz, let's flick to you, because I know now you've got a question that we're going to open up in a forum sense and just invite those who would like to. So for those people who are watching, if you have a question potentially that you would like us to ask, please comment in the comment thread and I will check those. Liz and I will ask questions of our forum group on your behalf, and we have some questions that have already been sent in to us, and those members in the forum group or the game changers in here, they will answer the questions that really sit well with them, that they believe they can add the greatest value to. So over to you, Liz.
Fabulous. Thanks, Carla. So the first question this evening, how has the structured PLD changed the landscape for not only your students, but also for your staff? So how has it affected your teachers, whether that's around knowledge and practice? So feel free to start. Maybe Regan, you want to start with that.
Okay. How has it changed the landscape? It's provided a very clear, systematic approach for all our staff to work through a very structured program. You know, there's very clear stages that the students have to work through, and it's very clear to teachers what they need to teach. So therefore, all staff are on board with a very similar approach. I mean, the staff have really enjoyed the camaraderie and the collegiality of working alongside each other on the same system to actually work through. You know, what's changing for our students is a massive data shift. And when I talk to our intervention teacher today, who also teaches through this approach, you know, the significant gains that are being made in a short space of time for our students is actually, that's the reward and what we're aiming to see. But with the staff as well, you know, we're actually having staff saying, this is the best PD we have ever done. You know, one teacher always springs to mind who's been teaching 30 years. She said, where has this been all my life? This is what I've been craving for. And now teaching and reading makes sense. So, you know, this is actually the shift that we're seeing in the landscape of our kura. And, you know, the delight that we see in our staff and especially in our students when they see their own progress, which grows their own self-esteem, that's the reward.
Super. Thanks for that, Regan. And I want to add to that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's that consistent approach that we have now in our school that we didn't have before in the teaching of literacy. So right from our new entrants right through to our year 8 students, we can see the same things happening in every class for every level, which is absolutely fantastic. And so having that explicit instruction and teachers having a great approach to follow and the scope and sequence that they work through with all of their learners has been absolutely fundamental in that change in our literacy landscape through our school. And also for our children, that explicit instruction has had those, the results have just been fantastic because of that.
Just to add to that too, Jo, one of the things that I think, and I'm sure you'll be the same, Liz, that we often talk about is that it's our responsibility as leaders to build a pathway that's going to ensure and enable success. And so when you establish consistent practice from class to class and teacher to teacher, you are much more likely to ensure that the pathway of education for those students is going to be successful, because all the teachers are on the same page with the same expectations, with the same evidence-based approach. And then we're less likely to have teachers in what I call those self-employed positions doing whatever they want to do.
And isn't it interesting, Carla, that the same language is being used? We've got scope and sequence, explicit instruction, and that was one of the changes that I've seen, is that's what we're hearing in the staff room. That's what the teachers are talking about. So sorry, anyone else want to add to that that's in the landscape?
I knew that question was coming, so I asked our team this morning what they would like me to share, and it is the debate in the staff room. We've had so many great challenges, and that's about sharing that knowledge together. So when you're doing it as a whole team and a whole school, that's a really special bond that you have. And you know, some of us have been in this education game for a very, very long time, and for the first time, embarrassingly, we feel like we actually know how to teach reading. We actually now know what we're doing, and we're sort of like those poor kids we had before. How did we get them through? Like, and we know that we were doing our best, and it's a little bit, it comes back to that why. So we were teaching handwriting. When I first started teaching, I did handwriting, but I didn't know why it was so important, and what was actually how that was, you know, increasing the neural pathways in the brain. And we knew that we needed a spelling program, but we didn't know what program and why it was so important. And so it's actually bringing back some of the things that we lost as well, and just putting it together in a package that's actually going to build little blocks, like building blocks for our kids that we know they're not going to lose. So that's the exciting part.
Yes.
Yeah, as Penny just said, there was a lot of guilt, I think, from people who've been teaching for a long time about why didn't we didn't know this this method of teaching, which is making so much difference for our children. Like our staff have worked incredibly hard to learn this structured literacy, and the hard work is being seen in the results of the children, and the collective feeling that we are making a big difference is a wonderful one.
I think also build on that from what Jason said, is our staff finally feel empowered that they're doing the right thing and the best thing that they can possibly do for the children. Whereas when we've had struggling learners, you kind of plodded along in the past and hoped for the best, but now you actually have that when you talk to a parent of a struggling learner, you have complete confidence in what you're sharing with them and what you're doing for them. And I think that's something, you know, that hasn't always necessarily been the case. So teachers being empowered and believing 100% in what they're doing has been a huge change too.
Thank you for sharing that, Felicity, because what I observe is teachers, what leads to teachers being able to do that is an increased knowledge. And the knowledge is so strong, your why is so strong, it's in your head but it's also in your heart, and you can't let it go, because you start to see that actually these children are becoming readers and writers. And it's just, and what I think is so exciting about the pedagogy is that you take it with you everywhere. And I was saying to someone today, when you go to your Christmas dinner and you're sitting reading with your niece and she's having trouble, you've got a gift for her. So, it may not be the Christmas gift she thought she was going to get.
I drive my own daughter nuts, so I get it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe. I was just going to say, I think it's also about having an approach that that is for all children. And in the past, we had, you know, we invested a huge amount of money in the likes of reading recovery for about 4 children. And, you know, we can now have an approach that works for every child in our school, and we can see the benefit of that for all children, and we're not letting anyone slip out that net, which is fabulous.
And that's because we now know all brains learn to read in the same way. All brains. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Awesome. Okay, let's head to our next question, which is a little bit different. What's been your biggest challenge so far with the implementation of a structured literacy pedagogy? What's been your biggest challenge?
I think the main one is funding it. You know, that's something that we would love to see the ministry come on board with. You know, there's quite a few $1 million being spent on a program called Reading Recovery that the Chief Science Advisor says works very moderately well. wouldn't we want to see that money being spent on something that is actually working extremely well in structured literacy? But at the moment, we've got to fund it ourselves out of our operations grant. And we believe in it so much that we've spent many thousands of dollars on resources and teacher professional learning. But yeah, the government need to come on board and look right from ITE for teacher training. And then we're going to have teachers coming out of our universities and colleges with the skills that we should have all been taught from day one.
Absolutely.
Can I pick up on what Jason has said there? Because I have to talk all that, Jason. You know, the cost is something that is significant. I mean, we have an absolute passion and belief in this approach, hence why we're funding it. But, you know, over the course of 2.5 years, it's cost our school $41,000. Now that's with the cost of Decodable, staff release, and of course the PLD from Liz. That is money incredibly well spent on developing our teachers, which is actually an ingrained approach which is going to support them for however long they're in the tenure of their teaching career, but also it's that benefit for our students. But of course, like you said, Jason, this should be funded by other sources. And when you have, and I can't get that phrase out of my head, a system that's being approached by the ministry that works moderately well, I can't get past that phrase. And it resonates terribly that we're funding this at exorbitant cost, but because we believe in it, and that's why we're funding it.
I guess from a practical perspective in terms of our school and our staff and the journey, one of the challenges, I think it's been taking it really slowly. You know, we're wanting to run before we're able to walk, if you know what I mean, in terms of teacher knowledge and things like that. So it's been trying to keep the handbrake on it because we can see the potential and where it can go, but it's like taking our time, going slowly and making sure that we really embed and support and coach teachers along the way, because it is a new approach and there's a lot of learning that goes on for our staff. So that's been one of the biggest challenges as well, is trying to slow down.
Yeah, and I think to add to that too, Jo, that continuous cycle of that, you know, it's about in many respects, and I think you'd probably agree with this. Well, I know you'll agree with this, Liz. It's like the learning never stops. I mean, even for us, it's sometimes I feel like the mouse in the cage. I'm just like, oh my goodness, there's so much, and the more we know we don't know, and that's okay. We've got to be okay to sit in that space.
I think adding on to what others have said also, it's, you know, we're choosing to fund this. It is money well spent and we'll keep doing it. But, you know, we talk about equity in education, and this is such an inequitable thing that's happening. And it's not our challenge because our school has the funds to bring this, you know, for our families and our staff and our children, but so many don't. And it's the challenge when you see educators who come in and work with us in our school and go, oh, we don't have this money to do this. And they've got the passion and they've got the ability, but they just don't have the funds, and that's so wrong.
It is, it's hard. And I know that's something that both Liz and I, we struggle with that from a sense of moral purpose. It's incredibly hard. It's wrong on every level.
Yeah.
What other challenges have there been?
I think a big challenge that's coming up now is that a lot of people are finding out about structured literacy, and that they're wanting to know more and be trained in it. And I think there's not enough opportunities. You know, we need to clone you two and others to lead this PD across New Zealand. A big challenge for us is that we're having 3 or 4 schools a week wanting to come and watch it in our kura, which we of course make happen, but I don't think that's sustainable. I think we need to think how this message is going to get to all teachers as soon as it possibly can.
And maybe, Jason, that's something, I can't help but go to this place because this is where my heart goes. Maybe that's something that as we continue these forum discussions and we move forward, because I know that there are many others in this forum this evening who are bombarded with requests for people to come and view their practice and to have that discussion. You know, whilst we would really, really like the ministry and the government to come on board, we can't wait for them to lead this. And if there's one thing that I've learned, it is that we need to be the change that we want to see. And so that's why, you know, having these forum discussions hopefully will grow the community of practitioners and leaders and game changers across the country who are in fact going to charge forward with supporting one another with that change.
Because I think it's really important, because we, as Jason said, we've got lots of schools coming that want to come and see, and they've got part of the story or part of the picture, or they've bought decodables because they've heard they're really good, but they haven't got the strong foundation behind it. And so my concern, or I think sort of probably all of our concern, is that there's people sort of jumping on parts of the bandwagon, doing their really best, and it's coming from the right place. But I think it's really important that all the structured literacy is done with what I guess we call fidelity, because what we, you know, we don't want to get back into the reading wars thing of where it didn't work for us.
Totally.
Because they haven't had the support behind to do it really well. Like, I can't even begin to imagine have been on this journey without Liz, and then without our RT Lit, Marina, who's luckily for us on site. You know, it would just have been near impossible to, I think, do it and do it really well, that you can say, actually, this is an approach that works and we're not just dabbling in. So, yeah.
I'll just pick up on that, Felicity. It's actually, I agree, and it's being very strong in your convictions, and actually having a very strong team of people around you, you know, an AP and a DP and an intervention teacher who are so versed and so knowledgeable in this, who can lead a strong team of people, that you make the conviction that we will only be using decodables up until stage 6, 7, and then we will change across to PM reads, you know, and actually being strong in that belief that what we're doing is actually setting a very strong foundation for our learners, because then they'll be able to fly afterwards. And so it's knowing the capacity. And I agree with you, it can't just be a piecemeal. It's very strong that we're deliberately embarking on this journey because we know it works.
Awesome. Liz, have you got another question?
Yeah, well, it's sort of to do with what we're talking about now, which is the decodable texts, which we know are a crucial tool, and they are just a tool in the big picture of structured literacy. As we know, there's, you know, phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, the alphabetic principle, they're all important as well. But I'm just wondering, you know, how have you managed the resourcing of that? I know you guys have budgets, and is it a strategic decision that you have made? Because there are others out there who would probably want to hear as to how you have managed to do that.
Yeah, it is a strategic decision, and when it comes to budget time, we trim back just about every other curriculum area to fund the decodables. And
sorry, Jason.
Yeah, that's okay. There's another box in Felicity's office today.
Liz will bring you lunch next week.
Yeah, but yeah, it is important to give the teachers the tools that they need for our children to succeed. And at this time, we are focusing strategically on the teaching of reading, and that's where the vast majority of our resources gone to.
And for us in our school, we had held a parent meeting, actually a parent education evening around our structured literacy approach, and we had fortunately, many parents from our PTA attend. And at the next meeting, they just said to me, "Jo, what can we do? We really see this as being hugely valuable. What can we do? What do you want? What's your wish list?" And I was like, "Whoa, wait there, I'll get back to you," because I had no idea what kind of investment that would look like for us to kit ourselves out with decodables. But you know, it was a great tangible project for them, and they had a bit of money and a bit of cash at the time, and so we were very fortunate to be able to do that. But you know, that parent meeting was the absolute catalyst for that happening, because I didn't have to go out and sell it. They heard it from somebody else, and it was fantastic. They came to me, so that was great.
So we have a very similar story, Jo, a hugely supportive parent community. So we have PALS, which is our parents at Ladbrokes, and they have funded a large portion of our decodable texts, and we have a wide range. I think one part of it is like we've got, you know, Liz, we've got your Little Learners Love Literacy up until stage 6, but then we have different texts that our intervention teachers are working on as well. So you need a range, not just, it's the whole idea of this is not a program. This isn't something where we're the Liz Kane school or the Carla school. We're actually a structured literacy school, and we use the tools that are right. So, you know, the Alba series is really popular, and part of that is then knowing the scope and sequence and choosing books that align as much as possible, because some are a little bit different than others. But it's just like any tool for literacy, you choose the best tool at that right time. So it's about having lots of different books, and it's exciting to see more and more. Look, the libraries are coming on board now and all of those things. So when we first bought Decodables, we went to Perth with Carla and our suitcases were full on the way home with Decodable text, because we've never seen so many. No, just Decodables, because we've never we've never seen so many Decodable texts in one place, because it was so hard to get them, and now actually it's, you know, you can get them from lots of different places, so that's exciting too. The range is opening up for New Zealand.
Yeah,
I just know too, talking with some schools, I'll say, well, you know, they're thinking of buying other labelled texts. I'll say, stand and look at your book room, and you've probably got hundreds, if not thousands, of labelled texts already. So if you decide that this actually, for a couple of years, you're going to invest your reading budget on decodable text, so you will have both if need be, and sort of pull back on the PMs that people are doing. And others have actually applied for funding. Maybe you've gone out to Lions. I know people have done, schools have done that, and able to get some funding in that capacities too, you know, to get some books on their shelves.
I think the other thing to add in here is that we can't embark on a structured literacy pedagogy shift without realizing that there are some fundamental tools that we need for this practice, and decodable texts are one of those fundamental tools. If we don't understand the significance of taking our students to decodable readers in the process of teaching structured literacy, we are in fact falling back into balanced literacy and teaching phonics and a whole language approach. So it is really important, but we can be strategic about that, and we can, you know, there are the amount of resourcing that is now becoming available both nationally and internationally. It's super exciting to witness. Okay, I think I've got another question here, but I really want to come into this question around, what would you say to the non-believers? What would you say to the naysayers? No pressure here.
Well, the science doesn't lie, does it? This is evidence-based. The evidence is there. This is actually a science, and science doesn't lie. It's the evidence is there, and we're a struggling country. We don't have the results that we once had, and there's no coming back from that. So we need to make some change, and it is hard because we hear often, but we've already done this. You know, we did this, you know, we did phonics, and it's really frustrating. We find that the biggest challenge, because no, we haven't. We were doing phonics, but we didn't have a structured approach to it. We didn't have a systematic building block by building block, concept by concept approach. And that's the bit that we find that people just have to be open to, and go and watch some of those videos, watch some of those YouTube clips, come and look at what our kids can do in our classrooms, because it's kind of quite phenomenal. And I think once you see it, you can't disbelieve it.
I would have to agree, Penny. It comes from a very strong evidence-based approach. You know, it's ingrained in research. James Chapman has been saying this for many years, and, you know, alongside him and before him has been Keith Graney, saying that a phonological approach is a very strong foundation to support the acquisition of reading, which is what our students have always needed. And, you know, talking to some of the teachers recently have just gone through their data. The data has been significant. One teacher today explaining that her data has doubled in 1 month, where a child's gone from here to here. You know, the shift has been quantum. And then talking to the intervention teacher to say, previously, before this approach that we implemented, you know, the gap between students was this wide. Actually, when she picks them up now, the gap's only this wide and she only has to go this far. So, you know, it's reducing in aspects too, because the students have got a better understanding of the approach to learning. And so the data is actually showing us that this is actually working for our students.
I think if I was speaking to a school, you know, I'd be saying go all in. Don't go in half-heartedly or just to toe dip. You know, if you're going to go in all the way. Be wise with what you're investing in your school, and this is a wise investment. You won't ever look back.
Yeah, I think it's crucial that you've got some champions in your school, some people that are really going to invest themselves in the knowledge and the training. We're lucky enough to have 2 people who have done the 5-day training, and their support with our teaching team is crucial. And yeah, just to any school that is unsure, You know, all you have to do is have that 5-year-old beside you, and for them to actually be able to decode a word rather than rely on a picture, it just melts your heart to see them being able to do it. And you know, if they come across that word again in another book, they will do it again. They won't be relying on other cues. So yeah, I'm sold on it. I wouldn't go back.
Military is Carla.
I also want to add, Carla, if I can. I mean, we have the beauty of having 6 Māori immersion classrooms at our school. Māori is an incredibly phonetic language. Now, we've got one teacher who is modifying and adapting this into Reo Māori. Now, the significant shift and gain that we're seeing in our Māori learners is phenomenal, because this is actually how their language is structured. And so when she teaches from tangi to a kupu and actually moves through to the kōrero sequence, it's beautiful to see the child actually move through their language and actually to learn their reo and actually move through phonetically to actually understand is incredibly powerful. So it works for Māori learners as it does for English learners.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing that, Regan, because we often are asked those questions about that transference. That's really awesome. Jason, just picking up on something that you said, I always find it incredibly empowering myself when I work with teachers who do exactly what you've just said, but then they can sit down with me and they know how the reading brain and the reading network works, and they're actually sitting with those students now, and they're pretty much identifying what's going on in the brain of that student, and that just lights up my inner geek like there's no tomorrow. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. Liz, for you and I, this journey into structured literacy very much started for both of us with our MSL training, and probably a real passion about making a difference for dyslexic children. And so we saw, you know, or from my own personal journey, was that I knew there had to be a better way. I knew there had to be something, and I had to find out what it was that I was missing. And completing that MSL training with Jodie was a game changer. It was that first key step to doing all of this. And then we've both gone on to I'm going to say package for the lack of better term, but pull together a pedagogical approach that can be implemented for tier 1 mainstream instruction. And where I want to go with this is the importance of alignment from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3. You know, as leaders across the country, we've all been privy to reading recovery. We've all had students go out of the classroom and had reading recovery done to them, and then they go back into the classroom, and I don't know if there's ever really truly been an alignment of what's been going on. Where I'd like to go now is just some conversation around what is it looking like in your schools from an intervention perspective. And obviously our goal, I've recoined the phrase RTI to RTT, because I believe it's a response to teaching, not a response to intervention. I believe the response to the teaching should come first. But what are you noticing? And for those of you that are really in this place, and I know, Penny, this is very much you at Ladbrokes, and I'm not sure about you, Regan, or Jason and Felicity, and I know Joe is here too, but for intervention, what is it that you're really committing to align and ensure that when students come out of their mainstream structured literacy instruction and go out for any learning support, what are you ensuring is going on there?
So I've got a Kieran. So, and no, I can't share my Kieran. I don't want to share my Kieran. But so we're really lucky because
we need to
Kieran,
clone her too.
Yeah, we do need to clone her, but Kieran's got a team. So a huge part of our investment is also in our learning assistants who are highly skilled and trained. And so we have tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3. And tier 3 is students working with Kieran and learning assistants really every day. So the idea of 3 hits, they're getting the same concept with 3 hits, and our tier 2 students 2 hits, and then our tier 1 are our in-class support. And this year we made such a minor, what seemed like a minor tweak, but has just been phenomenal in that we are pre-stacking our tier 3 and our tier 2 students, so they are seeing the material first, so that when they come back into classrooms, they are actually the leaders in our school. They are the ones who have those concepts and they've started, and it is absolutely magic. I watched a little boy today talk to strangers about the gentle Cindy rule, and just pure confidence that he didn't look like a tier 3 student. He knew exactly what he was saying. He knew the rule. He knew how he was going to apply it. And it's like, that is the alignment that you won't know who of our children are finding literacy harder than others. And it looks like children actually feeling really confident in the classroom. And that's made a really big difference in terms of even just how we plan. Last year, a big success for us was, last year we focused on our tier 3 and our tier 1, and we just didn't have tier 2. And we've got that really well nailed this year. So we're really looking at supporting 50 students in a school of 150. So that's reading recovery was for us 1 student a year. And, we're now targeting 50 plus our in-class support as well. So that's the difference.
And can I just add to that too, Penny, because there's a few questions that have come in through the comment thread about intervention. One of the things that I believe you've done really well is that you have grown into the development of that specialist teacher role and a literacy coach role, and that's been a game changer for the way that you've implemented intervention. And like Joe was referring to earlier, that's taken time, and you've had to strategically have the foresight for that. But you've mapped it out, you planned it, you got all the right support in place, and now you've got that in place, and it will just continue to be business as usual. And hopefully in time you might see those numbers drop down from tier 3, because that's our ultimate purpose, isn't it?
Yeah. So just for those that Kieran is our Senko, but she is our DP who is fully released to run tier 3 structured literacy and support our tier 2s and support our teacher aides and also those in the classroom. And that is the best money that we will ever spend, because we actually have a coach working with all of us all of the time, and she's a massive specialist that we have in our school working with our kids, and we're just so fortunate that that's the path our board and our parents and our team have let us go on, because that's the big part of our success, really.
Can I come in there and just talk about the alignment then too, also with the content of what's happening between tier 3, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. In the past, with different approaches, the children may have been struggling and have gone out to do a program that probably wasn't aligned or anything to do with the actual specific difficulties that children may have. So I think we've got to be very clear that we align when we're doing structured literacy at tier 1, and we identify the specific aspects that the children are struggling with, whether it be a phonemic awareness, whether it be some alphabetic principle, segmenting, whatever it is, that the tier 2, tier 3 is specific, and the content of what they're having is replicated. Everything is replicated from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3. And I'm sure that's what's happening when I'm thinking about Marianne, Regan.
I was just going to say, Liz, it very much is incredibly strong alignment, with an amazing team of people who are coached by the DPAP, also from yourself, Liz. Marianne, who is our Kieran by the sounds of it for you, Penny, who takes intervention groups, but it comes from like an MST approach. It's a double up. What they're having in classroom is a very strong phonological approach to teaching of reading. When they go with Marianne, it's the same, a very strong phonological approach, where, as you've just described, Liz, the alignment is very, very strong. And then we have support staff too, who work with another tier, who are actually working through them to actually grow those students. So as you once described, Felicity, with reading recovery, which might have hit a couple of kids, we're hitting multiple children to actually grow their reading capability.
So Regan and Penny, just because you've been speaking about this, one of the questions that's come through is your intervention teachers are taking the place of a reading recovery teacher.
We've never had reading recovery at our school, Carla, and never have.
Okay, and I can do my little happy dance below the screen.
We haven't had reading recovery for a few years, so they're not replacing reading recovery. They're actually they're not replacing reading recovery.
And then the next
question
is
a structured approach to teaching reading for the students who require it.
Thank you, Regan.
Yeah,
so well said.
Good answer, Regan. Well done.
We might quote that, Liz. Do they work with groups or one-on-one?
A mixture for us. That's actually about the individual child for different reasons, and that's actually that's where Kieran and her role as the specialist is making those decisions. Some work really well in groups, some align with where they're at and with their concept that works in a group, and for others that's a one-on-one, and that looks different for every child and in every situation, really.
And isn't that the exciting thing about structured literacy? There's no rules around.
Yes, you're so right.
Yeah, and no rules from the ministry. We have that wonderful tier 1 teaching, and then continue that with support for those extra support for those students that need it, either in a group or individually. We're not dictated to by a program.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so exciting. Let's
I think
switch. Sorry, Liz, you go.
I think that leads on to that next question about what role do we think the Ministry of Education have to play then, probably for you, Jason, in promoting and supporting structured literacy. And you're specific, I don't think people know that you're a member of the New Zealand Principals Federation exec, and you're probably in the Ministry of Education meetings and discussions.
Yes, yeah, well, there was a big review about reading recovery last year that was put out, and a lot of things that it lacked, and a lot of things that it couldn't provide schools. So we're having a real push at trying to get that resource put into a shape and form that's going to benefit everybody, not just the 55% of schools that are using it now, and that's decreasing every year. So the ministry, I guess the good thing is that they have put on TKI about the dyslexic reading support, which is a start. And I know there are some people in the ministry that are starting to listen to the groundswell around structured literacy, but we really need those key people who are making those decisions to be committed to learn about what the science of reading is, and come from an informed approach when they are dishing out the money. It's inequitable at the moment, and what we've been doing for years hasn't worked. So it's our responsibility as a country and as educators to keep pushing the ministry and informing them about what is actually working in schools.
Thank you. And Jason, I would just like to acknowledge your perspective on that and your willingness to speak up about that, because I think that it is, I know for both Liz and I, it's really empowering to have principals such as yourself who are really able to be brave and stand up and speak your truth from a place of respect and integrity, because you believe in this and you are seeing the results that we know every teacher and every student deserves in our country. So from on behalf of everybody who's watching today, from all of us, I just want to acknowledge you and say a very big thank you for the role that I know that you are playing in that area. Can we shift now to perhaps giving some ideas and suggestions to how we might support other schools so that all tamariki reap rewards? And one of the questions in particular that's come in is around kahuiako and how potentially there might be able to be a shift into across a community. And I wondered, Sarah, if maybe you wanted to share what you're provisioning for heading into term 4.
Oh, okay. So Pillins Point School, we made a video, actually it was for our parent community so that they could understand our journey and what we were doing and the changes that were happening with literacy. That video started to get shared, and we started to get interest from schools in our kahuiako and from our kol who were requesting to come and visit and see and what was going on. But, sort of to the point it was like, oh gosh, I'm getting visitor. How can we do this a little bit differently? So we simply put together an email and we sent it out to the other schools in our kol to say, if you'd like to come along in term 4, we'll hold a presentation all at once and we'll share our journey with you. And then that grew a little bit, because then the school down the road who wasn't in the kahuiako heard about it as well. So we extended that invitation to the Western Bay. And we've had a really good uptake. We've got about, I think, 14 schools coming along. We've also got some RT Lits who I just found out today who have found out about it, so they're coming along as well. And yeah, so it should be a really good event, and we'll take them on our journey of what we've learned, what the science has told us, our journey of learning, and also 2 teachers who are our literacy coaches at school. One from the junior school will share that on the ground experience as the teacher, and also our senior school literacy coach as well. She'll share too. So we'll give everyone a very real picture of our journey so far, which is still quite new. But even in that short space of time, we've had a huge growth of knowledge and skills in the teacher. And we've also, even in a very short space of time, had amazing results in data. So we'll share that information out to our community so that they can understand and decide if this is something that they'd like to participate in and do with their schools.
And perhaps something they're ready for. I think that's the other thing maybe that we touch on here too, that it's we've really got to be ready for this change, because Liz, one thing that you and I often discuss is the importance of quality leadership through this change process. And the reason that we are here with this great group of game changers today is because we've recognized the strength in all of your leadership. And, Liz and I on our own can't do this, create this change. It's actually you that create this change and your quality leadership. So just thinking back to answer that question for that person around, what they can do, perhaps sharing their knowledge, maybe holding an open day or holding a meeting where you have an opportunity to spread the word. And I think, as was very obvious from what you said, Sarah, being very authentic with that. It's not a hard sell. It's just actually we're telling a story here. We're showing the data, we're giving the evidence, and that's it. And we're also being, I think it's important, to be warts and all. That's why it's important for us to talk about what the challenges are, because there are challenges like any change process. We've got to be real about that.
Can I just add in there about literacy? Sorry, Sarah. When we're talking about structured literacy, we focus very much tonight on reading, and we know as a group of leaders, and Carla and I, that we're not just focusing just on reading. This is structured literacy. So the aspect of writing, the decoding, the encoding are just as important. And we're laying the foundations of literacy for our students in New Zealand. Not just being able to read the letters, the words, the sentences, the books, but be able to do that writing from that writing perspective first. So I want anyone who's listening out there, this is not just about reading. It's called structured literacy because it's the handwriting. It's everything encompassed as one.
Absolutely. Thanks, Liz. Jo.
Oh, that's okay. If I just come back to what Carla said about being ready, we didn't actually jump into this straight away. We actually had Carla visiting Pillins Point School in 2018 and introducing us to the concepts. We had time to go away and read and learn and look more, but we were also heavily involved with oral language through our COL and through writing, also with our COL. So we knew that we couldn't put teachers on a journey and overburden them either. So we actually had to wait until we were ready, but also during that time, the staff also were becoming ready and they were wanting to know more about structured literacy and how can we, do this better. So the timing for us was really, it sort of actually fell into place, but also really crucial because like we've been listening to tonight, there is a huge amount of learning that goes into this. It's a whole shift in pedagogy. You are learning on the ground every day and you can't have writing PLD and oral language and math or all these other things. This is, it's a very concentrated learning. And I think if you had other stuff going on, you're better to wait and have that timing right so that you can do it justice. Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. That's awesome. So, Liz, did you have any other questions that you wanted to raise?
No, I just wanted to put in that little bit about writing. I think it's important that that teachers across New Zealand, educators, realise this is not just teaching reading.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So as we wrap up this evening, I would like for us to think about what is one message that if you might like to choose here, what's one message that you would like to be able to share on the steps of Parliament? And what is one message that you would share to people out there who are listening to this chat this evening? What's one really, really important message that you would like to portray to either your colleagues, to parents, to anybody out there that might be listening that you think is a really important message for them to receive? Do you want to go first, Liz?
This is about, someone said this earlier about equity, and this is about the tamariki of New Zealand, and they deserve the best teaching that we can possibly give. And I think if we are open to learning, and we ask our children to be open, and I think if we can ask our educators in our schools to be open to learning, and to set everything to one side, and just to listen to the science, to read the science, be open, and realise that this is a transformational change that we can now begin. You actually, you wonderful people that we've got on this evening, you have begun the transformational change. And it's a very exciting journey, and I ask people to be open, to read, to listen, to learn, and to talk to others, have the conversations, and get cracking.
Yeah, I'll follow on from Liz and agree that it's about all learners. We have the opportunity here to grow learners that are neurodiverse, as well as those who are, performing really highly in our schools, and no one's going to be left behind. They all get an opportunity. So it is about the equity. And I also think it's important for us to remember when we're doing this is that we need to take our time. We need to do our reading. We need to feel confident in our approach, and also to support our teachers through that leadership to ensure that they feel confident, they feel courageous in their learning to be able to take it before we open it up. So that was one thing for us as a school. We didn't go to our community until we felt confident. And I think that's important as well. Yeah.
I think that one of the key messages is that we've got 1 in 5 adults in New Zealand who are not literate, and what are we doing as a country? What are we doing as educators about that? If you think of a life without reading, what sort of a life is that? You've got a lot less choice in your life if you cannot read, and it's our responsibility as educators to do the very best that we can. We found out a lot more through research than we had before. We need to use that as educators and provide our teachers with exactly what they need to learn about it and teach our tamariki well.
I'll follow on from Jason and go that now we know better, the phrase, we can do better. And I think if you've got any doubts, you just need to watch. I think, Carla, you talked with Jodie last night about outside the square, that you just need to listen to those dyslexic children from really young to teenagers talk about their horrendous stories of learning that just absolutely break your heart. If you've got any doubt about teaching structured literacy as opposed to traditional methods and what these kids need, and you won't even question what you have to do for them, but all children. And as Jason said, life without literacy and being able to read and write, that you just have to look at the statistics for those people. It's pretty grim. So there's a sense of urgency. We have to do this now for these children so they don't become a statistic later on that we don't want them to become. So we know better, we have to do better.
And I'd have to agree with that. I mean, there's that whakatauki, hea te mea nui, what matters most? He tamariki, he tamariki, he tamariki. It is the children that matter most. We've got this amazing group of students who are in front of us who deserve the very best we can give them. We've got this one shot right now. We need to learn from the past and actually move forward and actually do what matters most for the tamariki in front of us right now, and give them the best we possibly can to actually have them access what they can do to further themselves.
Yeah, be brave. We get into education because we have a passion, and this is the most passionate you can ever be about education, to sit with a child and see them read by themselves a book for the first time that they've never had access to. That is actually what education is about. And yeah, we've all been brave, but we haven't done it to be I don't know, game changers. They're nice words, thanks, Carla, but we've actually just done it because it's the right thing to do. And a little bit of courage and bravery we ask of our kids every day when they come to school. And it certainly puts a bit of passion back into your teaching, especially for those of us that feel like we've been doing it for a very long time. So you can do it, be brave, go for it.
Have you been, Sarah?
No, I haven't been. I was sort of just following, my thinking was following on a bit from Jason with that 1 in 5 readers in New Zealand. You know, as teachers, I don't think there's any teacher that ever went in this profession to not help change those statistics. And we've got an opportunity now to change that. So I think we need to invest and make a really wise economic decision as a nation and start teaching our kids in the way, like we said, that we now know. You know, ignorance is bliss, but we're not ignorant any longer. We now know a scientific way, a better way to do it, and we need to follow that process and invest in it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And my message is we've got this, and we have a community in New Zealand now of experts, leaders, quality practitioners across the country who are incredibly knowledgeable about evidence-based structured literacy. We've totally got this. We have to be the change that we want to see. It's hard, it's unrelenting, all of those things, but what you focus on expands. So if you focus on, in whatever place you're in, if you focus on making the change in a positive way, you will set about making that change in a positive way. On behalf of everybody who has joined us to listen in this evening, I'd like to extend a really big thank you to our forum crew this evening. It has been an absolute privilege. Felicity, when you were sharing your little bit, my eyes were welling up because that story that you and Jason are sharing is so, so close to home for me personally. And it is real. You know, we have to be the change we want to see. We have totally got this. We see it. Liz and I are in a very, very, very privileged position to see this on a daily basis in your incredible schools across the country. So on behalf of Liz and myself, I want to thank you all so much for giving up your evening. You're very, very busy people. Your commitment to education is commendable. And I want to really thank you for the difference that you're making. Thank you so
everyone.
much
Well done.
for joining us.
Thanks, Liz.
Love
Thanks,
it.
Carla.
Thanks.